We're going to begin talking about civil liberties. Someone who remembers, you haven't slept too much since you turned in your chapter 4 worksheet. What's the difference between civil liberties and civil rights? Does anybody recall that?
One of them is like, I think what the government's like required to do, and the other one are like natural. I can't remember.
You
Something like
are
that.
correct.
Ooh.
Civil liberties, which we're talking about today, are the natural rights that all people have, and the government cannot infringe upon them. Matter of fact, the government is supposed to protect citizens' natural rights, civil liberties. Civil rights are the and let me show you from the textbook to make sure I get this right, because I get the language confused sometimes. Textbook, show yourself. Where are you? There you are. Civil rights are, where are you? Oh, there we are. Whereas government is to protect our civil liberties, the government is to, governments are obligated to guarantee our civil rights. And the foundation is that the government is to guarantee that all citizens are treated equally. So civil liberties we have as natural rights, and the government protects those, and the government cannot do anything to take those away, theoretically. Civil rights are obligations in which the government is to use their power to guarantee that all citizens are treated equally, regardless of race, ethnicity, religion, gender, class. All citizens are to be treated equally under the law. But let's talk about the civil liberties, which were found, remember, beginning in the Bill of Rights. This is a facsimile copy of the original Bill of Rights. Ratified in what year? Anybody? Ratified, approved by all the states. What year did the Bill of Rights finally become ratified by all the 13 states?
Was it 1791?
Yes, it was. Very good. Ding, 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 ding. 1791. Also known as the 10 Amendments, right? And this is like the Constitution basically spelled out the national government and separated the government's power, telling the government what they could do. But many of the anti-federalists, remember there was those two main groups during the Constitutional Convention. The Federalists wanted a strong national government. The anti-federalists were happy with the Articles of Confederation. They feared a strong government. And so they wanted something added to the Constitution that would protect individual rights. So the Bill of Rights was drafted to protect the natural rights of all Americans. Here is the 10 amendments in a little pictograph format. After the first three, you get into 4, 5, and 6, 7, and 8. 4 through 8 deal with the citizens' rights concerning criminality. In other words, these rights are rights that citizens have that will keep in check the abuse of a government in their police power or in their judicial actions. So Amendment 4 says that, let's go ahead and read it how it actually is enumerated. Personal privacy is at the heart of the Fourth Amendment. It gives people rights against the unreasonable search and seizure of people's property by the government. You've probably seen a television show or a movie where the police go barging in, or they knock on someone's door and they want to come into the residence, and the person says, "Do you have a warrant?" So that's the Fourth Amendment. The police cannot just come into your home without a warrant to search or to arrest somebody. All righty. So 4 through 8 deal with individual rights that are protected from overbearing police power. And even the Third Amendment might be considered in that, because remember, the British, before we revolted against them, the British said that any soldiers that came onto your land and wanted to stay in your home or stay in your barns, you had to let them stay. You had to quarter them, give them quarters. So the Third Amendment was against having to quarter soldiers. Now, we don't really worry about that anymore, do we? But if you watch some of the news channels today, you hear talk about, oh, another civil war. And if that ever happens, and the opposite side comes with some special ops army snipers to your place, and they demand that they stay in your home, you can say, no, I have my Third Amendment right. You cannot stay. But I don't think that'll happen. The 10th Amendment is the one that says basically any right that is not clearly spelled out in the Constitution is something that stays within the state's realm. But let's start with the first two famous ones. The First Amendment that has 5 freedoms, and then the Second Amendment, the freedom to bear arms. So let's look at the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech. So right now we have, number 1, freedom of religion. Number 2, freedom of speech. Number 3, or of the press, freedom of the press. Number 4, the right of the people peaceably to assemble. This is like if you wanted to go to your county courthouse and your county commissioners were going to vote on raising taxes, and you guys form a group and you go and stand outside the courthouse and you have your signs, no taxes, no new taxes, and that's a right you have, but it's got to be peaceably. You can't riot, you can't burn down things, even though we have seen groups doing this in the last few years. People who riot and burn and destroy property should be arrested because that's not a right. Peaceably assemble. And then the 5th right in the First Amendment is the right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. If you've got issues or complaints, you can petition the government to present your case. All righty, I'm curious. I don't know if you guys read my riveting biography that I put on, and you know what? I'm very disappointed. I haven't had a class for 2 or 3 years where one student calls me, "Oh, Captain, my captain." Did you guys see that great picture of me with that quote from Dead Poets Society? The only student that has done that was from Pecola. Yay, Pecola. Anyway, so if you did read my biography or my biographical information, you may have noticed that I was a preacher at one time. And so I'm kind of curious if you don't have to tell me if you go to church, but if you do, and if your preacher ever said something like separation of church and state is not in the Constitution. Anybody have a preacher say that, or anybody say that? All right, good deal. Because I'm a preacher, or was a preacher, but it's clear that separation of church and state is in the Constitution. And we have that right here in the First Amendment. Now, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. There's 2 clauses in this freedom. The Establishment Clause, which basically says the national government cannot establish an official American religion. That's what that means there. It does not mean that religious people cannot take part in government. It doesn't mean that. What this clause does is it just basically says, because what happened, why did so many English people come to the New World? What was one of the primary reasons?
Religious freedom.
Yeah, religious freedom. They wanted to escape religious persecution. If you were a Baptist in England, you could be persecuted and would be persecuted by whether the king was English, or I'm sorry, whether, of course, the king in England would be English, whether the king was Catholic or whether the king was Anglican. If you were a Baptist, you would be persecuted in England. If you were a Catholic, In Germany, you would be persecuted by the Lutherans. So a lot of people came to the New World seeking religious freedom. And so it is codified in our Constitution that the national government, Congress, cannot set up a religion and say, this is our national religion. But then there's another clause in the First Amendment, the free exercise clause. That means we're all free to do Zumba. Just seeing if you're paying attention. We're not talking about that kind of exercise. We're talking about you're free to practice or exercise any religion you want, including no religion at all. Congress cannot pass a law that prohibits Job from Panama from worshiping however he wants to. I'm picking on Job because he had the audacity to leave class. Can you believe that?
He had to use the bathroom.
Again?
Yeah, he didn't want to listen to you, actually.
Is he on Lasix or something?
Yeah, he screamed and he stormed out, actually.
Yeah. He didn't like this subject. Sensitive for him.
He had a preacher that said there is separation, didn't he? Okay. So you can practice being a Baptist in America where you couldn't in England, or you can worship the flying spaghetti monster. Okay. If any of you guys have atheist friends, you might have heard that term. Atheists like to use flying spaghetti monster as their religion. Anyway, you're free to practice whatever you believe as long as you don't what? As long as you don't go around killing people in the name of your religion. You don't believe like I do, death to you. You can't do that, okay? So that's the first freedom in the First Amendment. Then there is, oh yeah, remember the Lemon Test? This came along in 1971. It seems like so many great things come from 1971, including your instructor, who was born September 1971. Anyway, I can post my address if you want to send a card or a present. But anyway, the Lemon Test said, in other words, they wanted a clear test that would, because there's really no way to keep religion and government from interacting. But there had to be a test that would keep government from overstepping their reach and interfering in religion. So the Lemon Test, if you remember, had three, just think of a fork with three prongs. If the government, whatever the government does in relation to a religion or religious people, it must have a secular purpose. The government, whatever they do, they must not hinder religion or advance it. And the government must not get too overly entangled with religion. So anything that comes up before Congress that might come from a church or another religious group, however Congress relates to that and whatever laws they pass must meet the Lemon Test. Okay, so we also have the freedom of speech. And there was also another clause, right, that had to do with freedom of speech, the clear and present danger clause. We're free to speak in America our beliefs, our opinions, but there is this check on our speech. We can't say things that would possibly endanger somebody's life. We can't use language, inflammatory language that would clearly bring harm to people. Right? The classic one is if you're in a movie theater, you can't yell as a joke, somebody's got a gun, run, and create a stampede. You can't do that. So government does have the right to restrict freedom of speech when public order is threatened. As an example, as a modern day example, the January 6th committee is trying to determine, well, I think they've already kind of determined it. They've said that President Trump, former President Trump, did use language that encouraged people to go and riot and destroy things. So I'm not saying that I say that, that's what the January 6th committee is saying. Don't want anybody to go home and tell your parents, Instructor Big is a flaming liberal who loves Biden. I don't want you to do that. Okay. We're all familiar with the Second Amendment. But here's the actual written amendment: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What is a militia? How does it differ from the military or the police?
The militia are like the people of the state that defend it, their area.
Yeah, just citizens, right?
Yeah.
And the classic example in the Revolutionary War was the what men?
Minutemen.
The Minutemen, yeah. Those farmers in Lexington and Concord, they got their muskets and their pistols, and they hid behind the trees and the fences. And when the British came down the road, they opened fire on them. They were a militia, regular citizens who were armed to protect their property and their land. Now, you all are living in a time of unprecedented gun violence. I mean, in the late 90s, I remember, but I was out of high school by then. I remember the shootings like Columbine, Colorado, and several other school shootings, even one in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. It wasn't a massive one like Columbine, but there was a string of several school shootings in the late 90s. And things kind of subsided through the 2000s. And now we've seen in the last several years, starting with Sandy Hook in Connecticut in 2011 or 2012, we've seen several mass shootings. Did you guys hear about the mass stabbing the other day in Canada? There was two brothers who killed 10 people with knives the other day in Canada, but what's the most recent one that we're familiar with as far as mass shootings? Uvalde, Texas, right? So the argument about the battle for gun control, the battle over the Second Amendment, is on the one side, the gun advocates are saying, because people are doing these mass shootings, we citizens should have the right to arm ourselves and protect ourselves. Matter of fact, there's even been cases where someone who had a gun, had a pistol, they had a permit, was able to stop a shooter. The ones who want to see more restrictions on the other side are saying, right, the Second Amendment was about militias. It was about invading armies and protecting yourselves against them. We don't have to have all these semi-automatic weapons. And then the gun advocates will say, well, we like to go hunting. And we know about hunting in Oklahoma, right? We live in hunting country. But they say, well, you don't need a semi-automatic to hunt. So here are some of the arguments back and forth about the Second Amendment. But it was very, very prominent in the founders' minds because they had just fought a battle with the British, and militia, Minutemen, were so important to their victory. And we don't trust them scoundrel British people. They might try to come back and take our country back. So the right to bear arms shall not be infringed upon. Here's some gun control issues throughout America's history. Beginning in 1966, there was a big school shooting at the University of Texas in 1966. One of the students, or the shooter, got in top of this tall tower on the campus and shot 14 people dead. Some of the legislation that's been passed. Okay, 11:43, a couple more minutes. The Fourth Amendment, we talked about that, right? Illegal searches and seizures. People have right to be secure in their homes, secure in their papers, in their effects, secure in their persons against unreasonable searches and seizures. Persons would be your body, your homes, your personal papers. Today, that would apply to your tablets and your Kindles and whatever kind of devices you have. I'm probably aging myself about 10 years when I say tablets and Kindles. And whatever other things you own. Your personal computers. You have a right to be basically to privacy in all these things. There are some things that these things here are just talking about further expansions of the right of privacy. The Fifth Amendment, everybody has the right to due process of the law. You can't be thrown in jail and left there for no reason. You have the right to, and actually you have the right to be in a court quickly and have due process of the law, which includes a right to an attorney. We talked about no double jeopardy. you can't be tried twice for the same law or same crime. Classic example is the 1994-95 case of O.J. Simpson, where he was found innocent of murdering his wife and her friend. Since he was found innocent in a criminal law, he could not be tried again. However, the family of the young man who was killed took him to civil court, and the civil court found O.J. Simpson guilty. So, but he could not be tried in a criminal court again. So double jeopardy. You'll want to go over these slides as you read about the Fifth Amendment. The Sixth Amendment actually talks about you have the right to a fair and speedy trial. You can't just sit in prison for years and years and years. Eighth Amendment, if you get put in jail, you have a right to have bail set that is reasonable. The fines that are set should be reasonable. They can't be overly excessive so that you couldn't pay them and you have to sit in prison. And you have a right to be spared from cruel and unusual punishment. Any questions on now we went through chapter 4 very fast, and I'll probably finish up a little bit on the 9th and 10th Amendments Friday, but we'll do that. And we'll speed through chapter 5 on Friday, so that Monday, the first part of Monday, we can review. And then I'll probably let you out about 11:30 on Monday so you can start your tests, which you'll have 3 days to do total. But so any questions? And it's open book test.
So do we not have an assignment for this week?
See if you have done everything that's in module 1 folder assignments. You're done with module 1 assignments. Now,
Okay.
have you gotten all your discussion replies in?
Yeah.
Okay. You can relax. Which, by the way, Relax is one of the songs by the group Frankie Goes to Hollywood. So just sit back and wait for the first competition between two of the bands.
Mr. Bings, don't forget to email the IT guy about our assignment.
Thank you. All right.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Job, stop drinking so much fluid before you come to class. Just messing with you. I'm just hacking on you. Anybody know what movie that comes from? Young Guns. Billy the Kid. Come on. You whippersnappers. Okay, well, have a great afternoon. Great rest of your day.
Bye.
Hold on.
Bye.
Wait.
We're leaving.
Okay, we'll see you Friday.
Let me